Welcome to the True Commercial Real Estate Podcast, your ultimate investor resource for all things truly commercial. Whether you're interested in industrial, retail, medical office, storage, single tenant, or any other type of non-residential real estate investment, this is your podcast.
Okay, well, good to have you, Tyler. We're here with Aurélien, the mindful investor, and Logan. And tonight we're going to talk commercial with Tyler. So, Tyler, you're pretty famous. You're on YouTube. You're from Nashville.
I don't know about that.
Oh, for sure. In this circle, yeah. In these circles,
you're very famous.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I've watched your video.
There you go.
You're too kind.
There you go.
So, and here the focus is on non-residential, and so we're really glad to have you. And we've got a few questions, and I'm sure the audience will have questions as well. So, to begin, can you please tell us about your journey? Because I know you were exposed to a development throughout your career, and then now you do brokerage. Can you tell us about your journey so far and in a high level?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a very different journey than most when it comes to commercial real estate. I dropped out of college when I was 20 years old, moved back to Nashville, started working in construction, actually for my grandfather's construction company. And I was there for about 3 months before a local boutique development firm actually recruited me to come be their in-house leasing agent. So they paid for me to get my commercial real estate license and then gave me which at the time I totally took for granted, didn't realize what I was being given. But they gave me a 150,000 square foot shopping center, a 57,000 square foot office building, and a couple 100,000 square feet of industrial space to kind of lease and manage. So, obviously didn't have any background in commercial real estate, didn't know anything about it. So spent a couple of years focused on figuring out how to deal with that. When I asked the owner of the company what I was supposed to do, he said, "I don't know, go find me a deal and I'll show you." So we started knocking on doors and putting deals together. And then since they were a boutique development firm, they were actually more focused on developing properties than we were acquiring, managing and owning new properties. So I was sitting in the weekly team meetings, which was all development for that entire time period, and figured out how to put a development deal together. So my first project, I guess it's probably 3 or 4 years into it. So I'm 24, was a 42 unit townhome development down in southwest of Nashville in a town called Bellevue. And we developed that, and after I got a taste for development, we were kind of off to the races. I knew that brokerage was always going to be a part of what I wanted to do, but I realized, there were really 4 pillars of the business that I wanted to build out. It was brokerage, property management, development and construction, and kind of capital. So we, about 4.5 years into working with them, I left, started my own firm. Launched a book called Open for Business, The Insider's Guide to Leasing Commercial Real Estate. I think it was literally a week after I launched that book, it hit bestseller, and then left and started my own firm. I was like, you know what, it's time. I hadn't even made the decision yet. And since then, it's been about 3 years. So that was February of 2018. I started the Cauble Group, which has since sold $68 million in real estate. I started Parasol Property Management, which now manages a little over 500,000 square feet and 126 multifamily units. And I started Hamilton, which is my development company. So in the last 6 months, we've acquired about $25 million in assets, and we have about $57 million in development and renovations going on. So, and that's mostly in East Nashville and Madison. We do have a project going on in Chattanooga. I'm looking to expand in that market as well. But that's where we are. We're a very vertically integrated commercial real estate firm focused solely on office, retail, industrial. We are product agnostic. So I'll do anything that to me is community or neighborhood building and just entertaining. So we've got everything going from a project called The Wash, which is a 6-bay car wash that I bought back in December that we're converting into micro restaurant units and a bar. I just acquired a 330,000 square foot shopping center up in Madison that we're master developing, and all the way out to a 9-story office tower in Chattanooga that we are converting into micro apartment units with office space and retail. So very mixed use, very into micro units. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Wow. So you mentioned commercial. So why did you choose commercial out of the? Because there is a lot of interest around residential and multifamily, but you chose commercial.
That's a great question. I get asked that all the time. So I got lucky, right? Like I got recruited by a commercial real estate developer. But like I said, they were developing all sorts of things. We did single family homes, townhomes. We did a 144 unit apartment complex. We were doing office, retail, industrial. So I actually got a taste for the residential side of it. We had an in-house residential agent as well that was selling all the custom homes. And he decided he wanted to pursue a career in acting. So he left a very successful real estate career, moved to California, which is funny because he was like 50. So at the time, they just kind of looked at me and they said, well, you've got your real estate license, get to work. And, it was a $1.2 million custom house down in Cool Springs. And so I figured, hey, what the hell, the commission on that's going to be pretty decent. That's probably worth working on. And boy, was I wrong. That was the most miserable experience ever. What I learned was residential real estate is very, very emotionally driven. There's not a lot. Look, I mean, in commercial real estate, there's a lot of logic applied, right? Like the numbers work or they don't. The location works or it doesn't. When you get into residential, I mean, I swear, we would have people walk into that house and just be like, yeah, I don't see my son growing up in a house painted this color. I'm like, oh, well, what color do you want it painted? I will paint it myself. What do you want it painted? I will take care of this. So that was a very interesting experience. And I said from that point on, I would never do residential again.
Okay, that makes sense. In terms of investments, what are your criteria for your own portfolio? What type of properties do you like buying? Where and why?
That's actually a very tough question for us to answer. And that's one thing that I've got the team kind of working on. We're putting together basically just an acquisitions sheet so that people can see what we have acquired, because I never wanted to be pigeonholed as the multifamily guy. I didn't want to be the office guy, the industrial guy, the development guy, the renovation guy. To me, it's like, no, let's go do projects that are fun and entertaining. So, and that have an impact on the neighborhood and the community around us. I focus very heavily on East Nashville. It's my favorite part of this city. Growing up here, it was not really a place that you were allowed to go to. I mean, it wasn't that spot, but now it's got all of the best food and beverage concepts. You got some of the coolest business owners, entrepreneurial startups going on over here. It's just a lot of fun. It's a different kind of atmosphere. So, I mean, on this side of town alone, I own an office building. I own a couple standalone retail spots. I own 4.5 acres that we're doing a mixed use development on. I'm buying a hotel. So we're kind of all over the place when it comes to product type. So to me, it's like, is it walkable? Is it sustainable? Is it publicly engaging? And can we do it differently than what has ever been done before? And also, we got to get our investors' returns, right? So we typically look anywhere for a minimum 18% IRR or a 1.75 equity multiple. So that's probably a better, like if you want to actually throw a metric on it, it's probably in that range.
Thanks. So let's talk about your online, your favorite deal that you've been a part of. Was it a brokerage deal or was it personal? And what type of deal was it? And what was so exciting about it?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, out of all the deals that we've been involved in, the smallest one that I'm working on right now is still the most exciting to me, I think, because again, it's so different than anything that's ever been done. We did all of our research and couldn't find a single other project like this in the country. So it's the car wash conversion that we're doing called The Wash. And to me, what's so exciting about that is, one, this was a car wash that sat unutilized for years. Like this was where you would go, you know, to meet the local neighborhood crack dealer, right? Like hanging out in Bay One, and you would dump trash, right? Like that's just kind of what it was. And so, and it's in a nicer neighborhood, right? And it just kind of didn't make any sense. Well, people couldn't figure out what to do with it, right? Because there's a very small lot. The problem that that the lot had was if you tore down the building, the city would recapture 20 feet of right of way, which was half the lot.
Oh,
so it essentially rendered the lot unusable. So we had been looking at that deal before COVID hit and couldn't figure out really what to do with it. I knew that I loved the location. It's in my neighborhood. Like I knew that I wanted to do the deal. I just couldn't figure out how to do it. And we had looked at office space. Well, it didn't have the right parking for that. So we couldn't do that. We looked at it for Airbnb. We could do single tenant Airbnbs. I never really was excited about that. And then the pandemic hit. I said, hell no, we are not touching hospitality right now. And then after the pandemic hit, about probably 60 days into it, my brokerage started receiving a lot of calls from restaurant groups that wanted to open up smaller space that was very focused on to-go and delivery. And every call that came in, we were just like, we're really sorry. That doesn't really exist. This is Nashville, right? Like, it's not like you're talking about downtown LA. It doesn't exist. You either lease 1,500 or 2,000 square feet or you don't get anything. And I was driving past the car wash one day and that one of those calls came to mind and I called my architect. I was like, man, you can tell me if I'm fucking crazy, like what I'm here for, but what if we put restaurants in each of these individual little bays and then use the front spot as patio seating and had the parking for to-go and delivery only. And funny enough, he had actually had a similar idea 5 years earlier on another car wash in town that he couldn't afford to buy at the time. So that project just never happened. So he was instantly on board and said, let's do this. Let's roll. I've got, we can do that. So, what's really exciting to me about that project, other than like all of the problems that we had to solve, right, which is like what commercial real estate really is. You're just solving problems, is the fact that we're giving restaurant startups an opportunity. Opening up a restaurant is a notoriously expensive and difficult thing to do, right? I mean, it costs 6 or 7 figures just to build out, and then you've got to commit to a 5 or 10-year lease. And a lot of people who are just trying out their business can't really commit to that, right? I mean, it's really tough. So every business that we ended up putting in there, there's only one that has another location. All 5 restaurants are startups. They were either groups that were doing pop-ups or they were doing food trucks before this. And because of the micro size of the units, we got a record price per square foot. Market rate is like $25 to $30 per square foot triple net. In East Nashville, we're getting $100. But each of the restaurants is either women owned or people of color owned, which I think is not something that we targeted, but it was a really cool thing to see that, like, hey, when given the opportunity, all of these people have ideas. And so we've got 2 Peruvian chefs. So we've got a Peruvian concept. We've got a Cuban concept, Hawaiian, Mexican, and Vietnamese. And so it's like the most diverse, like, outdoor food hall you can imagine. So yeah, I'm really passionate about that project. It's a lot of fun.
That's a cool project. I hear the word micro a lot in your interview. And I really like the fact that it's you were thinking outside the box to figure out how to solve that problem. And I really like your quote about commercial real estate being about problem solving. So Tyler, you have a great presence online. What prompted you to use YouTube the way you do it?
Yeah, so being a millennial in commercial real estate is you very quickly realize all of the gaps in this industry, right? I mean, I think the average commercial real estate broker is 54 or 56 years old, old white guy.
Yeah.
Right. And so, the joke I always made is like commercial real estate is stuck in the 80s. Like it just, it's a bunch of guys and old button downs, like sitting at desks, making cold calls and smoking cigarettes. To me, I looked at that. I was like, okay, there's a way to innovate within this industry. And I think that if we could do that, we will capture an immense amount of value. Mm-hmm. One of the first ways that I was able to do that was through Instagram. Right. So I started my Instagram account probably, 5 years ago now, maybe. And at the time, I was one of the only commercial real estate guys that was like pitching commercial, or like kind of I never pitched commercial real estate. I always showed the behind the scenes of like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what it's like being in commercial real estate in Nashville. I think that's what a lot of people got wrong on social media is like, hey, lease this building, buy this from me. I want to buy that. I want, sell this. So nobody wants that. Nobody wants to follow that. They don't, but they do want to see the behind the scenes. Like, hey, here's what it's like working on that next cool restaurant that you guys all want to know that's popping up. Here's what it's like, working on the biggest axe throwing bar that's coming to the Southeast. There's a lot of that kind of going on, and people love those stories. So that was where I got a taste for it. And then we started, I'll never forget, my boss at the time was like, what the hell are you doing wasting your time on social media? Nobody's ever going to buy commercial real estate from you online. And that was back in 2016, right? So at the time, nobody had really proven that that wasn't true. And so I was like, wow, I really think you're wrong. But, that kind of took me down a couple notches. And then all of a sudden, we started doing more business through Instagram than any other channel. Just everything that we were putting out there, because business owners are on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And people who have money are on Instagram. And so they start following you and you become the guy. Right. And so then we started doing blogs and started writing about commercial real estate because nobody else was really doing that either. But I didn't take that seriously until the pandemic hit. And I didn't have, we probably all remember this, right? It was like at the end of March, maybe early April, we had that bear run in the market. It was like Wednesday record lows, Thursday record lows, Friday record lows, and all of the properties that we had under contract. Now, I was just a broker at the time. Well, I was not just a broker, but these were all for deals that we were brokering. I swear that Friday, every single contract called and said, terminate it right now. And so we went from having, looking like we were going to have our best year ever to all of a sudden, I had nothing to work on. Nobody would even take my calls. Nobody wanted to put money out. And it wasn't because money wasn't there. It wasn't because people weren't, interested in buying stuff. It's because everybody thought that there would be a better opportunity coming up soon. And they wanted to sit on cash, and they didn't also know what was going on. So I went from spending 99% of my time out of the office to 100% in an office, not knowing what the hell to do with myself. So I started writing, and all I did was write like for 6 to 8 hours a day. Different blog posts, doing all sorts of research. And after about 30 or 60 days, the traffic on the website just started taking off. Like finally Google was like, okay, this guy's an authority on commercial real estate. This works. So that started doing well. And I had also hired a graphics artist right before the pandemic hit, thinking maybe I can have this guy working on our marketing materials, this and that. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, well, damn, I don't know what I'm going to have this guy doing anymore. I literally just hired him. This is going to be rough. He had a background in motion graphics and video editing. And so one thing that I had said was, well, I've always wanted to do YouTube and like do these educational videos on commercial real estate investing because, again, no one is doing that. And he showed me some stuff that he'd worked on before that he can do all these graphics and stuff. And so I said, all right, let's do it. So if you go back and actually look at the first video, we hadn't invested any money at all. It was literally recorded on his phone. And then he went back and edited it it was really bad. And then we just slowly, I'm glad we got started when we did, right? Because who knows when we would have really gotten going, but I started doing videos every week. And I said, hey, let's try and improve one thing a week, whether that's buying a piece of equipment or doing better coloring or doing better editing or whatever. And now we've done, over 60 weekly educational videos on a different topic in commercial real estate. We're doing live streaming on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. We're doing a vlog that goes out on Friday, and most of that is now getting transcribed into a podcast. And it's because it's opened up that audience immensely. We're getting investors from all over the country now because of that. And also I just enjoy it, right? Like that was one of my biggest points of frustration when I first got started in commercial real estate was, one, there was no education out there, right? Because I got started in 2013. Like that, it didn't exist. But two, the guys that could teach you basically said, don't ever call me. I'm not going to train you because you're going to be my competition.
Yeah.
And so that was just really frustrating. So yeah, that's why we do it. I really love doing it.
Thanks. Well, thanks so much. Logan, you want to take over?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. No, I love it. I have a previous life in the media world, and it's phenomenal. We used to take small businesses and try to get them to open up and do a lot more video. And it's amazing the transformation, even on a small business level. And you're in a large town, and you're doing stuff that's all over the country. But even in a small town, just opening up and showing people who you are on a regular basis, it's amazing what can happen.
Really
it's phenomenal.
is.
Your channel's awesome. Love watching it. So thanks for continue to put out good stuff because it's great.
Well, thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about your book. What prompted you to write it, and what did you gain out of that? You talked a little bit about that earlier, but if you could hit on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm big. There's a book called Blue Ocean, and I forget who the author is, but that was a very pivotal read in my career because it distilled down what the author is talking about is get out of the red ocean, right? Like that's where all the sharks are swarming. There's blood in the water. Everybody's fighting over scraps, right? And that's everybody's fighting over, if everybody is doing Facebook ads, don't go do Facebook ads. If everybody's doing Google ads, don't go do Google ads. So it's find your blue ocean. And, that's always been a core part of what we do. I mean, if you look at literally every aspect of who we are as a brokerage or property management, I mean, we're different from everybody else in some very significant ways. So one of the first ways that I specialized was by working with small businesses. So because I was at a boutique firm, I had a larger commission split than most people ever dream of, right? Because I mean, if you go to CBRE, you've got a 50-50 split. I mean, they're taking half of it. If you go to, I think I had an 85-15, right? So you think about like the doors that opens for me, I can work on a much smaller deal and be actually more profitable because, like a CBRE team, you're 50-50. And I'm picking on CBRE, but this could be Colliers or Avison Young or Cushman & Wakefield. It doesn't matter. Yeah, all of them. Yeah. You're on a team of 2 or 3 people. And so you're taking that 50% and then you're splitting it up in half or thirds or whatever that ends up being. And, I didn't have to do that. So I could work on these much smaller deals and make just as much, if not more money. So I decided to focus on small business because they didn't want to do that, right? You think about like a $10,000 commission that the house takes $5,000 and then they have to split that 3 ways. It's not worth getting out of bed for. Mm-hmm. But, if I'm going to take home 8,500, like, yeah, I'll go work on that deal. So I realized after working with small business owners for a couple of years that none of them know what the hell they're doing when it comes to leasing commercial real estate, right? Like and there's no reason for them to, everybody signs a lease in college, right? Like you're used to signing an apartment lease. You read through it and it's kind of like, okay, what is what it is. Right. But a lot of business owners don't realize, like, one, you can negotiate almost every single aspect of a commercial lease. Like it's not a laser doc like you get from the bank. Like you can negotiate whatever you want. I've seen crazy things. I've seen people ask for the seller's Bentley because they liked what the seller pulled up and they're like, I'll give you this price, but you're going to give me that Bentley. I mean, it's that kind of negotiation. Right. And so when business owners don't know what they're doing, they will sign a lease that is clearly not in their favor. And I've seen everything from a dentist open up a medical spa that ended up losing over $100,000 because she spent all this money on build out. It was a terrible location. She should have never done. I mean, she was actually the reason I decided to write the book. but all the way to, we had a boutique in Hillsborough Village that signed a lease that accepted full responsibility for a 17-year-old HVAC unit. Well, guess what? That HVAC unit went out that year, and she had to buy a $10,000 or $12,000 unit, and she had to shut her business down because she didn't have the cash flow to pull that off. So, it's that kind of stuff. And I realized that there wasn't a resource out there for these small business owners to learn how to put a deal like that together, or how to find the team to help them go through that process. So that's really where that came from. It was kind of a step-by-step guide for business owners to at least say, hey, here's what you need to be aware of through the process. Go get help.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So found the niche you wanted and wrote it for them. That's cool. Very cool.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So it sounds like I'm in the Charlotte market, and it sounds like Nashville is just as hot, if not hotter, than the Charlotte market right now. So it seems like that in a lot of metros. Nashville's crazy, Austin's crazy. Now, Charlotte, Raleigh, pretty much if you're in that belt up here down in Texas, it's crazy. So, what kind of factors are driving that in your market specifically, and do you see that continuing?
Yeah, I mean, Nashville has so much going for it. It's hard to see it slowing down anytime remotely soon. And there's a number of factors for that, right? So, like, you look at where Nashville is geographically located in the country. Within a day's drive, you can reach 80% of the population. So, as a logistics hub, that's incredible. Which is why Amazon, is moving 5,000 jobs here. For that specific purpose. You look at the fact that, it's a blue city in a red state. Who doesn't love a good blue city in a red state? That's exactly what Charlotte is, right? Mm-hmm. That's exactly what Austin is. Mm-hmm. That's what Atlanta is, right? You get all of these, there's all of the pros of a progressive city alongside a conservative state, which for whatever reason, that formula just works out really well. Mm-hmm. So we have no state income tax because Tennessee is a conservative state. So because of that, you look at, all these people from California, Chicago, New York City, they get a massive pay increase just by moving to Nashville. Nashville has a pretty strong and diverse business sector. Everybody knows us as Music City, but that's actually one of the smallest industries here. Healthcare is massive. We're one of the biggest healthcare cities in the country. So you think about how resilient that makes us when it comes to any sort of pandemic, any sort of downturn. Nashville weathered COVID and 2008 unbelievably well. Really, really well. Education is huge. This city is the Athens of the South. We've got like 6 universities within, 10 miles of the urban core. Oh. So that there's a lot of that going on, but then also the culture, man. Nashville is just the people are beautiful. Everybody is so kind here. They'll hold the door for each other. And what's been really neat to see, just as a native myself, the majority of the people moving here are assimilating into that culture, which is really cool. You've got the progressive Southern values that I think is, it's a trophy asset, right? So there's so much going for Nashville. So no, I think Nashville is currently where Atlanta was in the 1980s. I think it's only going to go up from here, which is, really, really exciting for guys like me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. We're seeing a lot of similarities between the two cities, Charlotte and Nashville, and it's fun to be here. It's fun to be in a city like that. I'm originally from Wheeling, West Virginia, which is about 20,000 people, and,
wow.
And there's nothing happening over there. We're about an hour outside of Pittsburgh, but it's exciting to be in a place that's growing and developing like that. And speaking of some outside the box stuff, you already talked earlier a little bit about outside the box things that you do, and the next few questions I have are a little bit a little bit outside the box, if you will. So I saw a recent video you had where you bought a limousine. Is that real? Did you do that? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yes, I did. I did buy a limo. So I bought a 1987 Lincoln limousine, and it is currently being retrofitted and updated. I will be getting that back in about 30 days. Really excited about that. Yeah. So it started off as a joke, and then it very quickly became hey, it doesn't make sense for me to not do this. Like I tell people that about private jets. People wonder about private jets all the time. Well, there's a certain point in your commercial real estate career where it doesn't make sense for you to not own a private jet, right? Like you will lose money, which is kind of funny to wrap your mind around, but it is actually true. So, gosh, I guess this was back in February or March. I was leaving a buddy's place and it had just snowed, and the snow was sitting on top of his limousine. And I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. So I took a picture of it, posted it on Instagram, and I was kind of joking about it, like selling the Tesla, buying this Lincoln, hiring a driver, just as a joke. And I got like an overwhelming response from my audience of like, do it right now. Like, that's so you, do it.
That's awesome.
And so I joked about it to my buddy, and he said, well, I'll sell it to you. And he gave me a hell of a number. He was just like, he just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And so I did it, and I actually sat down and ran the math. So if I drive an hour a day, which we all know in real estate that's being very, very conservative with how much I'm driving. If I'm driving an hour a day, 50 weeks a year, that's 4 additional work weeks of time that I'm spending behind the wheel. And maybe I can make phone calls, but more likely than not, I can't really do anything. Right. So that's 4 work weeks of just wasted time. So if I hire a driver and I get this limousine and we get Wi-Fi installed and I have a desk, I can get back 4 more work weeks. So can I close 1 more deal a year because I have that? I mean, I think the answer is hell yeah. There's no telling how many more I can really close. But then also you think about everything else. Like, one, it's funny, right? Like, it's kind of a brand piece. Like, I love that. You brought it up, right? Like, the fact that you brought it up is kind of one of the reasons why I'm like, yeah, let's do it. It's a talking point. But 2, just being able to pick clients up and go sit in the back with them. It's good. I'm having a cocktail machine installed in the back. So like, we'll be able to have cocktails, go on property tours, and not just, people who are looking to buy real estate, but like investors. And so just being able to build that rapport and have that level of presence with them is so worth it. So hell yeah, I bought a limo.
That's awesome. Well, you'll definitely stand out in their minds, investors, clients, everybody. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. I'm jealous.
Well, hey, whenever you're in Nashville, man, I'll send my driver to pick you up.
There you go. We need to go to that little restaurant strip too, because I'm going to try every single one of them. Yeah. Set aside like 4 hours so we can eat and just keep eating. So I'm
so excited just about like the collaboration. So we'll come out of that. Can you imagine like the Vietnamese tacos and like the Peruvian pho? Like, I think that there's so much cool stuff that can come out of that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds like a killer place. No, that's awesome, man. So the next question I have is, how do you balance all this? I mean, you've got your brokerage, investment, development, the media production, all of it. How do you balance that?
That's a great question. If you have any ideas, I would love to talk to you about it. No, I mean, look, I work all the time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just like you guys do. I mean, it's 7:45 on what is today? Wednesday. Yeah. On a Wednesday night, and I'm on this call. Like, I genuinely love what I do. Yeah. So I'm very fortunate in that respect. So it never feels like work to me. But I am constantly, we're either writing or whatever. I mean, look, I typically have meetings first thing in the morning around 7. And I'll usually end my day around 7 or 7:30. So I think that that's the biggest piece. I mean, look, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't have a pet. So I'm at a point in my life where I can make that sacrifice, or to me, it's not even a sacrifice, but I can make those decisions. And I know that at some point I will not have the luxury that I have now. So I'm trying to really take advantage of that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Makes all the sense in the world, for sure. Now, the final question I have before we let some of the other folks in here to ask is, you said in your introductory video you want to leave your mark on the Nashville real estate landscape. So what are your thoughts on that topic? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, my goal, and I love telling everybody what it is, because when you throw it out there, people know about. I've had people bring this up to me before, which is really cool. People that I haven't seen in years, because this has been my goal forever. And when you create something like that, you throw it out into the universe, I think that the chances of it happening are incredibly high. But also, you're being held accountable, right? Like, I've had people come up and ask me, so look, my goal in this life, and that is, at least until I hit this goal, is to have the most architecturally significant tower on the Nashville skyline. Right. I mean, to me, that's like the pinnacle of success in commercial real estate, is having a tower like that. And not just a tower, the most architecturally significant. So growing up in Nashville, we had the Batman building, right? Like, that is currently the most architecturally significant tower in Nashville. And you look at the impact that has had on this city. Like, so they probably didn't even remotely think about that when they were going through the process. They're like, let's just design a really neat looking building. Let's design this really giant, I mean, it's a huge building. And dude, businesses have it in their logos. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
So like, you've designed something so cool and so meaningful to a city that other businesses are putting your building in their logo because it's a symbol of the city. So to me, as a Nashvilleian, as a guy in commercial real estate, like, that's the ultimate achievement.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, we really appreciate you being on, man. It's been great. Just to recap, developer, investor, commercial real estate broker, owner of the Cauble Group in Nashville, Tennessee. We're stoked to have you here again. Podcaster, YouTuber. Check you out on there. Your book, Open for Business: The Insider's Guide to Leasing Commercial Real Estate. You've done about everything. And so we're excited to see what the next chapter brings. For our audience out there, not in the room here, but out there, how can we get a hold of you, or how can people get a hold of you, reach out to you? Is Instagram the best way, or what's the best way to get out and consume your content?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always go to tylercauble.com. That will pull up, mostly the Cauble Group, but also my blog is there. The podcast is there. A link to the YouTube channel is there. But if you want to actually connect with me, the best way to do it is through Instagram. Just go search at Commercial in Nashville. I will pop up, and that is, I respond to all of those messages. So if you do DM me on Instagram and you have a question about commercial real estate, or you're looking at a project and you want my opinion on it, I can't spend a whole lot of time helping you underwrite or anything like that, but I'm happy. I will respond to you.
Awesome. Raylan, you got anything?
Yeah. Some thoughts around because people here in in our group, we have a lot of people starting out, in commercial. Do you have any tips for people starting out in commercial?
Yeah. So if you're just getting started in commercial, I highly recommend finding somebody in your market that is already successful doing exactly what you want to do, and go work with them. Whether that is in an intern capacity, I don't care if you're 40 and you're doing an internship. If this is that important to you, you'll find a way to make it happen. We've had a significant portion of my team has started off as interns, and now they came in, proved themselves, and now, I've got a 23-year-old that has 10% profit share of the company because he proved to me how valuable he was to what we were doing. Right. And so that's honestly the best way to learn, because I have people bring me, or they come and they want to work for me. Right. And that's great. Like, it's very flattering, but also, like, if somebody's going to come work for me, that means now I'm responsible for them. Right. Like, I have to pay them. I have to oversee them, what they're doing, this and that. And like that actually adds more to my plate. So if you want to learn, figure out a way to take something off somebody's plate. What are they doing that you think that you can help them with that will make their life better? What kind of deals are they looking for? Go find a deal and bring that to them, and then partner on the deal with them. Right. My first development deal, I went out and found the dirt. I put it under contract. I did, everything on that. I only got 10% of the deal because I took it to a developer and I said, hey, I've got a tiger by the tail. Help me. Like, let's do this project together. Here's my goal. Here's what I want to do with this. And they said, okay, we'll give you 10% of the project. we will fund it. We will sign on the debt. We will show you how to do it, but you're going to be responsible for going out and doing it. I said, cool, let's go. So I ran it through engineering. I ran it through architecture. I ran it through site development and construction. I mean, I did that for 24 months, right? And I only did that for 10%, but the 10% wasn't what I was really doing it for. Like, it's great that I got paid, right? Like, that's really cool. But the stuff that I learned then as a 24-year-old is why I'm able to do what I am doing today. And that's the reason that most people that are in their late 20s are not developing commercial real estate. They have no idea how to even go about the process. So it's all about the knowledge, right? Like, man, I didn't make money for years just so that I could learn.
Thank you.
Awesome. That seems to be a common theme for highly successful people, is that willingness to almost put, you said it earlier, I don't care if you're 40, take an internship, is almost put that ego aside and say, I'm doing this for the long term. I don't need to be, 90% owner. I think there's so many people starting out that just, that's the only mentality they have is I got to own the whole thing. I just want, and I think that's great. That's something that you hear over and over and over again is people who are willing to go the extra mile at the outset to learn. And that's great advice. Great advice.
Yeah. I mean, it only takes a few years, right? Like, I was with them for 4.5 years before I went off and did my own thing. Like, go commit to spending 5 years with a development firm and then go do your own thing.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great stuff.
We have a few questions. I'll take the first one and leave the second one to you, Logan. Sure. So what's the exit strategy for your development projects, Tyler?
Great question. So our exit strategy is always a sale. The timeline typically depends on what kind of project it is. I'd say usually anywhere from 4 to 7 years. We do have some projects that are 10 years. We always project a sale, but my goal is to be a buy and hold kind of guy. So when I give my investors is say, hey, if we were going to sell, this would be your return, I'll buy you out is typically how we'll get to that. And I'll just probably re-syndicate it when that comes up. But I mean, we've had a few projects that I was adamant when I first bought them. I was adamant, like, I will hold this forever. And then the right offer came along and I said, you know what? I don't really need to hold that forever. We will sell that and go do something else.
Money can talk.
That's right. Everybody's got a price.
That's right. That's right. So next question is, what kinds of timeframes are you seeing in Nashville market for third-party reports such as commercial financing reports, appraisals, phase one, environmental reports? It seems like things have slowed to a crawl, resulting in delayed closings.
Oh, they have. I mean, you've got to find the right team. Yeah, it's very, very important. And that can be tough sometimes, but like, I'll call my attorney, right? Because I've got a commercial real estate specific attorney that all he does is handle commercial leases and commercial closings, which means that he's involved in every aspect of that. Because if you hire a commercial real estate attorney, they are going to be reviewing every step of the deal along the way, whether that's the phase one ESA or they're reviewing the laser docs from the bank, which I always do because I'm not an attorney. I'm not like, I need somebody like that to be reviewing that kind of stuff. So, they tend to know, right? I mean, we're using Terracon right now for our environmental. They're incredible. And that was a referral from my attorney. They're nationwide. So if you guys, need somebody like that, I would call Terracon. I mean, they are actually great. As far as like surveys go, it's taken like 4 to 6 weeks to get a survey right now, which is unbelievably frustrating because it should take 2. But they can't find anybody to go work, and there's too much work. As far as lending goes, I mean, you need every bit of 60 days, which is also frustrating. What were some of the other ones? Phase ones, a couple weeks. Phase twos, those are taking 6 to 8 weeks. So it's kind of all over the board. I mean, it's a lot longer than it should be, and it's a lot longer than anybody wants. So,
thank you. Do you take advantage of tax credits? What are the structure of your construction loans? Two questions here.
Yeah, so we definitely take advantage of tax credits. There's a lot of nuances to that, and honestly, I have a research and analytics team that works for me that handles that. So I could not tell you all of the details of how we go about doing that. I think that's a 6 or 7 person team at this point. But yeah, you have to. I mean, we're working on a deal in I guess the South. We're working on a deal in the Southeast that is one of the biggest environmental issues that this state has. I guess we'll leave it at that. But because of that, the state and the city and the county are all offering a ridiculous amount of tax credits. They're offering all sorts of environmental incentives and abatement programs. I mean, I've never seen a site. I mean, they're basic, like you look at it and they're like, they're paying us to do this project for them. I've never seen anything like that. So yeah, I mean, if you have the opportunity to, I would definitely do the research, definitely do some tax credits. We always do a cost segregation study on every property, by the way. I mean, I am amazed at how many people don't know that cost segregation studies exist. If you do not know what that is, look it up. It's essentially accelerated depreciation. And that is how you can make a hell of a lot more money on your projects. So let's say commercial, right? Like you have a depreciation schedule over 39 years, which tell me one thing in a building that's going to last 39 years. That, seriously, there's nothing. So look at like an HVAC unit. You really want to write that off over like 7 to 10, 12 years, somewhere in there. Anyway, this group comes in and they will show you how to accelerate that appreciation. We had a client build a 150 unit apartment complex. The first year they cash flowed about $1 million and they showed a $500,000 loss because of accelerated depreciation. So that's money directly into your pocket. So yeah, definitely research those kinds of programs. For sure.
The follow-up question to that was, what are the structure of your construction loans? What is it? Yeah.
Is there a specific, like,
Darren, what you want to elaborate on that, Darren? I don't know if he's
muted. I mean, so nothing really specific. So as far as like structure of the loans go, I like to do A&D loans, which is an acquisition development loan, which means the bank has wrapped everything up into one. We close on the property and I already have a line of credit to draw down for the construction. If forced to, I will choose to close in cash and then we will refi or do the rest of the loan. Just because I don't want to deal with double closings and paying the bank twice and all that kind of stuff. So that's typically where we go.
Cool.
Now from Courtney, tenant representative brokers, is there a percentage commission based on total base rent of lease term, or it could be total of base rent and triple net?
So typically you don't get paid commissions on the triple net expenses because it's not actually those are actual property expenses. So you will get paid on the base rent for a triple net deal.
Thank you.
Cool.
What are your thoughts on retail, small retail, mom and pop retail? I think you're bullish on them. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely, very bullish on it. I think mom and pop retail. I think neighborhood retail. I mean, that's definitely something to be interested in, right? Because you think about the boutique, bespoke experiences that they can provide that Amazon will never be able to touch. That's going to be very in demand. It's already starting to trend. So I would look towards those assets for that specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. I look at it the similar psychology between you can go to the grocery store and make your own food and it's cheaper, but you're going to spend 10 times as much to go out to eat, but people still go out to eat all the time, right? Because it's fun. You enjoy that. And it's
an experience. And nobody wants to do dishes.
Yeah. Yeah. We got one more. What do you think of flower shop, bubble tea shops as retail tenants?
I mean, I think they can be great. I think flower shops are great. I've got a flower shop that's a tenant. They're incredibly successful. So I think It just depends, right? Like I think any business could be good. I mean, it just depends on what kind of space it is and how you're underwriting them, right? I mean, we always take 3 years of tax returns, a personal financial statement, and then do a credit background check on everybody. Now, I won't do that for like the $500 a month tenants. We do a credit background check. But if you're signing anything that's over $1,000 or $2,000 a month, you better bet your ass that I'm going to make sure that I know exactly how your business is being run, because I'm investing in you as much as you're investing in your business.
Absolutely. Awesome. Raylan, you got any more questions?
Well, I remember you mentioning in one of your videos talking about niche, and can you say a few words about picking a niche, because it's a conversation that comes up in the group quite often. What are your thoughts on picking a niche?
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, by the way, I've got to run here in a second. But as far as choosing your niche goes, the thing that I recommend is starting off as general as you can get. Go do some office deals, go do some retail deals, go do multifamily, do industrial, do development, do value add. Don't pigeonhole yourself based on what you think that you're going to enjoy, and then narrow it down from there. Right? Like we started off the commercial real estate brokerage. We were doing hell, when you start off in real estate, you do every deal that comes your way. So like, I just need to make money. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. Well, then I lowered it to like, I'm not going to do anything outside of a 30-minute radius in Nashville. And that was kind of the first move I made. Like, I didn't want to drive 45 minutes to a showing. And then we narrowed it down again. I said, I'm not doing anything outside of 15 minutes of Nashville. And then I kind of narrowed it down even further. Like, I'm not going 10 minutes away from my office. I do not care. I will not take the deal. Not worth it. Because now for me, it's a lifestyle. Like, I will not drive 11 minutes to go work on your property. I just won't do it. So, you start to realize over time what you're passionate about and what you love. And it's very easy. It becomes very easy to chop off the shit you don't. So, I mean, I remember the first client that we fired, and it was nerve wracking, but also, damn, it felt so good. Just being like, you know what? Like, I'm finally at a point where I don't need the business. I get to focus on the stuff that I love every day. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. The word of tonight. I think we really hear your passion for commercial real estate. Thank you so much for sharing it with us and answering all our questions.
Yep. Thank you,
absolutely.
Tyler. Really
I appreciate you guys having me on. This was great. I love this.
Yeah.
Good to have you, Tyler.